Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Zara Altair, and this is where we talk about making a good mystery great. And today I'm going to talk about 5 must-haves you need for your mystery victim. They are a really important character in your story. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their continued support. And if you like this video series, and now we're a podcast, there's a link in the description below to become a patron. So thank you very much. All right. So today I want to talk about that character that we really don't see a lot of, and that is the mystery victim, because they are so important and they're a clue to a lot of what else happens in your story. It's like their relationship to the villain, their relationship to the suspects that your detective has to discover, and they're all based on your victim. So even though they're a dead body, you need to know a lot about them. All right. So let's just dive right into it. All right. First of all, you need a past. They need a big backstory. You need to know that backstory, because part of your detective's job is to discover that backstory, who they were, what they did, what their personality was like, what suspects have to say about them, how they related to suspects. You can give them a hidden talent or an unexpected affiliation, something unique that your detective needs to discover. You need 1 or 2 of those. You don't want to just cram it up with strange, bizarre things, but, give them some unique characteristics in their background that your detective needs to discover, that is going to shed a light on who they were and also how they related to other characters in your story. By breathing life into your victim, one of the first things that you're doing is making them a victim worthy of setting up this whole discovery process that you're going to do through the rest of the mystery. All right. You're weaving that intricate backdrop to that discovery process that your detective needs to go through in order to unveil the villain. Second, and really important, is the victim's web of connections, who they know, how they related to each one of those people. And also, it's a web, so it works both ways. It's how those suspects related to the victim. What is it that the victim did that maybe ticked them off a little? And what is it about the victim's personality that created loyal supporters, best friends, that sort of thing? And a lot of the mystery lies in that network of relationships that your detective needs to discover. It serves as the lifeblood of the story, because you're bringing that victim to life, as it were, through the eyes of the various people that are the suspects that your detective must interview and solve and sort out real clues from red herrings and all that stuff. So that victim's relationship to the people around them is really important. It's something you need to know, because you, as the writer, have to reveal those relationships kind of piece by piece by piece by piece. And as I've mentioned several times before, suspects often have something else that they want to hide that has nothing to do with the crime, so they may make it even more difficult for your detective to get to the real truth of their relationship with the victim. Okay, and then something else your victim needs, just like any other character in your story, is flaws. What are the things that they did in their life, their personality traits? Um, you you want to create a multi-dimensional victim character, and you want them humanized with imperfections. And of course, one of those imperfections, one of those personality traits is something that drives the villain to actually commit the crime. So you need to understand that victim's personality through and through, so you can relate their personality to the other suspects, and also that thing that they did, that thing that they had, that personality trait, whatever it was that drove the villain to actually kill them, that created that heat of rage, that spark of anger that drove the villain over the edge to kill the victim. So you want to know your victim's primary flaw, and this may not even be the reason that the crime is committed, but it's a great way to throw suspicion on other characters and mislead your detective. Everybody talks about their cranky personality, for instance, or whatever it is, but that may not be the actual flaw that tipped the villain over. But it's something that your detective is going to have to investigate. And until you know what that personality was, it's hard to bring it into your story, and your story's going to feel flawed. So you want your victim to be as much a multidimensional character as any of the other characters in your story. And the last thing I want to talk about is like the victim's death, and it's kind of the butterfly effect. Because the victim died, all these other characters in your story are going to have responses to their death. Some people are going to feel a loss. Some people are going to feel relieved. And the impact of the victim's death, you want, how can, I'm struggling to come up with the right way to say this. The impact of the victim's death has direct results on the other characters in your story. So you want to examine and know how, not only when they were alive, how they impacted the suspects, but how their death impacts the suspects as well. Their death can expose hidden secrets, or it can expose scandals or disputes that had previously been concealed. Those are all things that can happen when the victim dies. So you want to think about those interpersonal ramifications that happen after they have died. So there's really a lot to think about when you are creating your victim, and you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time with this and you get really deep into it, because that victim provides the motivation that actually resulted in their death. And so they need to be three-dimensional. They need to, the victim themselves, their personality, who they were, how they acted, how they treated other people. These are all things that your detective needs to discover, because as far as your detective is concerned, in most stories, the detective did not know the victim, and the victim the detective is clueless, as it were, about the victim. So you need to know all as much as you can about the victim. The other thing that this does for you as a writer is that when you have a rich, detailed character background for your victim, it also allows you, as you develop your story, to pull out the things that you know from their background to enrich your story. Um, so it's really important. It's really important. You've got your victim, your detective, and your villain, and there are three characters for which you really need a lot of background detail. It's going to help you write the story. The more you know about your victim, the better able you'll be to construct the mystery around them. Okay, I hope that helps. If you have any questions about that or how to deal with your victim and how deep do you go, anything like that, please put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer comments. Um, and thank you so much for watching. Once again, I'd like to remind you that Audible is a sponsor for Write a Killer Mystery. And if you haven't experienced listening to stories as opposed to reading them, it's a fun experience, and I encourage you to give them a try with a 30-day free trial. And there's a link in the description below. And it's lots of fun. I right now am listening to a really good story, but also an amazing narrator. It's a very long story, and the narrator has a separate, recognizable voice for each of the characters in the story. It's a phenomenal narration job, and that is the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. Not a mystery per se, but a really great story. So be sure to grab your 30-day free trial of Audible. Thank you so much. Keep writing. And don't forget to subscribe. If this is your first time, just subscribe and click that little notification bell. And I'll be back next week with more tips on mystery writing. Okay, thank you.